On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, we will break down our most improved position groups and biggest remaining questions. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we've got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You're joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, I made it back from enemy territory. I survived 3 days in Kansas City, and I'm back home.
I saw your picture of you, and it must have been like the airport or something with all the Kansas City gear. It's funny. We had an art show at school tonight, and they have like the book fair. This classic book fair is always at the art shows or whatever. And they had a Travis Kelce book. I was talking to one of the other dads, and I was like, is it terrible that I want to like take that book and chuck it across the room? Like, so I don't know how you didn't tackle that, Patrick Mahomes. That would have been a better social media use of your platform to like get dragged out by TSA for tackling Mahomes.
I needed to get home. I could not afford to get arrested in the Kansas City airport. I got to tell you, like, obviously, I assume their city looks like Buffalo would look if we won 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. It's everywhere. Like the whole city is just everywhere. And it's so I travel.
Kind of looks like that, and we haven't won.
Correct.
Like,
and I travel a lot. I'm all over the place in different places in a lot of major cities with major sports teams and franchises, and there are some that are more similar to others, and the ones you hear. I mean, you heard Joey Bosa and Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore talk about how Buffalo is more like going back to college and that college feel, and like where that's like the thing to go through, and it's Kansas City's like that. It is. And again, prior to the rivalry the last couple of years, there was always a really strong kinship with that fan base because they went 50 years without a championship, and similar to Buffalo, like never lost that passion and that, that burn for the team. So, I just let us get one. We just need to get one. That's it. And then, we can go back.
They're quickly realizing too that sports fans go from like that likable. They took down the Patriots, so I think a lot of people are rooting for them for that. And now they've won too much, where everyone's sick of it. And we don't. And those are the problems that I want in my life.
I would love to be hated. I would love people to be sick of how much we're winning. I would love that.
Yes. Instead, we're still the lovable losers that everyone's hoping can turn one around here. So
I'm friends with the guys over at the Ringer Fantasy podcast, and I was listening to their show when they were going through talking about, like obviously like the team we'd feel the best about winning the Super Bowl would be the Bills. And it was like, oh God, I hate being like the lovable loser that everybody.
Oh, it's in Detroit, right?
Hope. Yeah, it is. It is. All right. So tonight we figured this is our kind of our bridge show that takes us from the off-season content into our position previews, getting you ready for next season. Getting you through the hardest part of the off-season, for being honest. The easy part of the offseason is reacting to stuff that's happening. So, you guys know Aaron and I stick very clean to the schedule itself. We go through evaluating our roster and who the extension candidates are and who we need to re-sign out of our pending free agents. Then we react to free agency and who the additions are and the first wave and second wave of that. Then we finally get into draft mode and go through what's remaining for needs, who the primary targets are, bring in different people that can help us do draft evaluations. Then we go through the draft. Now we, react to the draft. And now we're at the point where we're going to kind of summarize, okay, so now we've had this whole stretch since the new league year started. We've obviously had a lot of different moves with players being extended, already extended ahead of time for future contracts, new additions on both sides of the ball, all the 9 additions in the draft, and now kind of stepping back, and we're going to do 2 different groups for both offense and defense. our most improved position group, and our biggest remaining question or biggest remaining need for any position group. We'll do that for both offense and defense. So we'll start with the offense. Do you want to start with the biggest remaining need or start with the most improved? You want to start with the positive side or end with the positive side?
Well, so like all things, I can't be just put in a box. You can't, I don't live in that world, Greg. So you can't define me by simple categories. And I cheated on this. And actually both my most improved and biggest question is the same position group. So I don't know if that works, or if I fail the test,
yes,
by doing it
you
this
receive
way?
no points. I award you no points. May God have mercy on your soul.
But let me explain myself. I think it's two things in one here, and I think it's the wide receiver room. I think that it is both. Well, the offense is tough, right? The offensive line, you're returning the offensive line, and so I don't think that that's most improved. Like nothing really happened along there, and that's great because I love that unit. Obviously, quarterback, it's the MVP. So like even if he improves upon that, like whatever, maybe Josh Allen got stronger or happier. I don't know. Running back, pretty much also still the same room. There's some question marks, but I didn't want to get into the questions. We're gonna have so much time probably to talk about the James Cook contract and what he's gonna do. So I didn't really want to bring it into that. And so really it left wide receiver, really pass catchers, right? I'll put Dalton Kincaid in this group when we're talking about his size and where maybe he lines up. But it's most improved because I think one, you got to take the not necessarily the additions that they got in this offseason, but the development. And that's what Brandon Beane is kind of banking on, is the development of Keon Coleman, the development of a Dalton Kincaid. What I'm been pounding the table for is the continued trending up and development of what Khalil Shakir can be and what that ceiling looks like. And so there's an internal improvement, I think, that we're all hoping and banking on. And maybe it's not all three of those guys, but even if one takes a big step forward, that's an improvement in itself. And then you look at rounding out this room, right? We'll talk about it in a little bit with Elijah Moore being brought in, Joshua Palmer, who I think Beane really came out and has really said, hey, we didn't give him this kind of money for nothing. Like this is what we think this guy can add to this group. And I know Eric Turner is a big fan of what he can bring to it. I know talking to the guys over at Field Vision, they loved this addition for what the Bills needed in terms of being able to stretch the field. And then there's still some guys developing in throughout the ranks here for the Bills. So I think it is both the biggest improvement on the offense when you look at the group as a whole, a healthy Curtis Samuel as well. But it's still got the biggest question because can Keon Coleman take a step forward? Can Dalton Kincaid get close back to that rookie production that we saw and exceed that? And can any of these other, can a Curtis Samuel stay healthy for an entire season? And can Elijah Moore meet that draft promise that he had and get this 1 year prove it deal and really make something of it? So there's still a lot of questions, but it is also, in my opinion, the most improved group. Is that crazy to answer it both ways?
No, I think there's some great, and it's funny. I didn't cheat. We never check on these things ahead of time so we can react organically on the show. I have those two position groups, but I did separate them out into the different buckets. Like you said, there's not as many options on the offensive side, so I don't think there's really much to define. We shouldn't really have all that many questions at quarterback, running back, offensive line because they were all really good last year. We brought everybody back. We didn't add anyone to any of those groups. I mean, Chase Lund as an offensive lineman, later pick Kendrick Green as a depth guy. There's just not all that much to be done. That we brought back Darrington Evans. We literally have all four of the same quarterbacks that we had before. So there's really not that much to do there. I had wide receiver as my most improved, as you touched on. I think Brandon Beane kind of said the quiet part out loud in the interview. Like he didn't pay him $11 million a year because he doesn't think he's good. Like he obviously thinks they found something and that he was worth being able to work through. And it's debatable on how that's going to work, how well that's going to work out, and what things are there. But I think people have gotten. Obviously, we joked about it with the phases of the franchise and things like that. We've also reached a level of success where expectations have now spoiled a lot of our fans, and that now, because Brandon Beane hasn't had a ton of like grand slam kind of moves, that like he's missed on things, or that he's not good at, like I've heard it a lot, that he's not good at finding receivers. And like Stephon Diggs was an awful lot better after we got him here than what he ever was in Minnesota. Khalil Shakir has been fantastic. Like he's had moves that have been positive additions to the team and being able to identify talent. John Brown wasn't anything special before he got here, and then had a career performance. Cole
Beasley put up
had,
all pro. Yeah.
Had, both of them had career performances after coming here. So there have been plenty of situations that have gone very, very well from Brandon Beane acquiring wide receivers. So, there's unknown in Keon Coleman. I think that he was trending towards a very nice season. If he had continued just on the exact same pace that he was on, he would have had the exact same rookie season as T. Higgins. I think that would have been really, really positive. He has more to do, but there's at least potential there for it. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I think you've talked about how there could be more with Khalil Shakir, and we've thrown it out there that there are metrics that show you he's capable of Amon-Ra St. Brown performance. Josh Palmer having there, and I do think Elijah Moore is a really fun addition, especially when he's competing with Curtis Samuel for wide receiver 4 and 5 area. I know the release just happened and there's no definitive moves or anything, but I won't be shocked if they add Gabe Davis to this group, and that what they're talking about with Caden Prather as a 6th wide receiver, like, yeah, what if it's, the Gabe Davis is back to what he was as a rookie when it was like a really nice wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, and can do some of those like second, third tight end kind of functions, some of the blocking, some of the different pieces, and just having nice veteran depth as he gets himself
he's a
healthy.
better blocker than Dalton Kincaid.
So on the other side of that coin, my biggest remaining need and my biggest question, I did have the tight end group. I think that Dawson Knox had a nice season last year, and we even kind of half joked or tongue in cheek said he was the best tight end in the team. I kind of think he was. Dalton Kincaid had some really nice moments, but some inconsistency and some, further challenges in the blocking. I know obviously now we've learned he played through a PCL injury. He had surgery in the offseason. Brandon Beane even talked about how he did him a disservice, not really talking about how impactful that injury was. We now brought in Jackson Hawes as a true blocking tight end, Lee Smith type guy versus a Quentin Morris, or I know you like Zach Davidson or that kind of potential there. They're really, our only area of like true excitement is, can Dalton Kincaid be what we hoped he would? And not that you can't do that in a year 3 breakout, like guys break out in their 3rd year. It's not unheard of. It used to be the norm, more than a decade or so ago. But that's my biggest remaining question on offense is, are we going to get like nice contributions from the tight end group, or are we going to have like a weapon that other teams need to worry about? Because when you draft a tight end in the 1st round, you're hoping that you're getting a weapon that other defensive coordinators have to worry about and have to plan around. It doesn't need to be, Brock Bowers or things like that, but you're planning on it being, I at least want it to be a factor. I want it to be Trey McBride. I want it to be something that like when the matchups come in, like, oh man, what are we going to do about Dalton Kincaid? And that hasn't been the point. He's been like a Jake Ferguson. He's been like one of those guys is like, that's their tight end. He's the guy who catches the ball. Like it's not anything that you have to plan around or that is part of your game plan going into the game, preparing for it. And that's certainly what I'm hoping for. So I haven't shut the door that's a possibility. I think that there is the possibility that we can still see that. I think the combo of Kincaid and Knox is still above average in the NFL. I think the two of them together are a nice tight end group, and that a lot of teams don't have a second tight end as good as Knox, or a second tight end as good as Kincaid, however you want to frame it. Sure. But that's the one that I still have the biggest question on, because I part of it is still my own expectations and hope of what that player was when we got him. And part of it is I want that to be a threat, because I think the well-rounded part, when you don't have we obviously don't have a defined like superstar number 1 receiver. I think we have a very good receiver group, but part of that is you need the running back group to be a threat in the passing game. You need the tight ends to be a threat in the passing game. You need the quarterback running to be a threat, so the defense doesn't know what's coming. And if they don't have to worry about the tight ends, it just takes a little bit away from that, overall threat the offense can make.
Yeah, I think Dalton Kincaid's an interesting one, and the reason I kind of like mushed everything into pass catchers is it's a little bit of wish casting, and that I
Sure.
hope Brady, Brady's talked a little bit about positionless wide receiver with a Curtis Samuel, and what I hope their plan is for a Khalil Shakir, and you kind of touched on what Elijah Moore can do, being able to go on the outside and go on inside a little bit, and that the size necessarily doesn't matter, and I hope that they add Kincaid into that mix of maybe not treating him in the traditional tight end way and make more of how teams have used Mike Gesicki, where it's like more of a big slot type of role. And I don't think that the Bills had last year the pieces to really unlock what I think Kincaid can do to stress a defense, which I do think Josh Palmer adds. Whether or not Josh Palmer's production meets the deal or not, I think his ability to stretch the field and be a threat to stretch the field and get those targets downfield, which the Bills had a lot of good talent, but it wasn't, Coleman could win physical battles downfield, but he wasn't forcing a safety help over the top, right? On a DB. It was more like, hey, he's going to win a 50-50 type ball. I think Palmer does have the type of route running ability and has shown the ability to win deep that teams are going to have to at least account for it in the passing game, which should open up the seams for Khalil Shakir, for whoever's the slot guy, for a big slot like a Dalton Kincaid. So I kind of wish casting here a little bit that Brady and the Bills use him more as a pass catcher and try not to maybe stick a round peg in a square hole and really keep him as a traditional tight end too, and try to do more of the tight end things. Cause I don't think he's that guy. And I think you drafted him late first round to be a pass catching weapon, and you got to find ways to get him the ball. They've done a good job with some of the other guys. It doesn't feel like they've done a good enough job of manufacturing the looks to get Kincaid going. And so I'm hoping there's more of that, which will probably make him better. And I do think with both Kincaid and Dawson Knox, I think there's a little bit of optics associated with like Knox is pretty good. Like he's pretty solid, but that contract just lingers over that he's not meeting the contract. And you and I have talked about it. Like he'll never meet that contract, even when he takes pay cuts. And then with Kincaid, it's the draft pick. And I think the expectations that this guy could be wide receiver one, like that was the crazy talk this time last year was Diggs is gone. It's good. Kincaid's going to come in and get all these targets and be wide receiver one. And that expectation was probably too high. He's whatever your expectations have been on him, he has failed to meet them. I'm not trying to make an excuse here, but maybe we have to readjust where those expectations for him were. And like, hey, maybe if he's even like a top 15 productive tight end, that is good enough for an offense that was already historically good. If you get a top 15 producing tight end, we'll be looking a lot better next year.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of different mechanisms where they can still reach a higher level. I don't know if they'll reach like the original value and expectations that we had, but again, there's still a lot of paths to good and really positive contributions. Quick one here. Corey from Buffalo said, Greg, I need to know where I can get one of those Tribe Called Mafia shirts. It's one of my favorite shirts from our friends over at 26 Shirts. I actually just scrolled through the vault quickly. I didn't see it out there, so I can poke Dell. It was one of my favorite ones. I wear it all the time. I really, really like it. Before we move to the defense, we're going to share this week's Here to Help, which I'm going to add in something we talked about pre-show and a comment that we got here during. There was one, people have asked about Gabe Davis at a veteran minimum or Gabe Davis in 2025. His contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he signed a 3-year, $39 million deal. $24 million was guaranteed. He got like 11 and change of that last year. And then this year he already got an $11 million signing bonus and another $1.5 million guaranteed salary. So $12.5 million. And that those guarantees have offset language. So people remember that from like the Russell Wilson deal last year, where when the Broncos already owed that money to Wilson, whether, I think his was like 40 million total guaranteed, and whether the Broncos paid him 39 million and the Steelers 1 million, or the Steelers paid 10 million and the Broncos 30 million, he still got 40 million. So unless the Steelers were going to pay more than that, he wasn't getting more money. So there's a little bit of debate on Gabe's deal, whether there's the offset is just the salary or also the option bonus. But in general, I don't think the finances are going to be the biggest part. I think he's still rehabbing from his injury. I think that he's going to want an opportunity where he can play on a winning team, put himself in good position to earn a new contract in 2026. But he already got like $12.5 million for this year. He's doing pretty good. So I played around with some different things. And one, if the option bonus is part of the offset language, it literally doesn't matter. No one's paying him $12.5 million for this year. So if that's the case, it'll literally be the minimum. If it's only the $1.5 million salary, I think maybe it could be a factor. But my guess was it wouldn't be a factor until someone was going to pay like, I don't know, $4.5 or $5 million. Because I think he'll get offers for 2.5, $3 million. And if that's the case, if say the Bills offer $2 million and somebody else and the Panthers offer $3 million, well, he's already getting $12.5 million for this year. He'll probably just take the $2 million from Buffalo and versus the $1 million more. Now, if we'll use the Panthers or the Titans are offering $4.5 million or $5 million, well, all right, that's probably enough money that it's enough more that he'll probably take it. But for me, that's about where the threshold is. I think it's most likely he signs with, obviously, Pittsburgh just traded George Pickens, so there's an opening there. They've already talked about that being a possibility for Amari Cooper. I'm sure that his agent's calling there. Dable and Shane are out in New York. I could see that they are obviously here when we selected and utilized Gabe Davis to his fullest extent, so I could see them calling. And then you have the contender piece of it. The Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, the Eagles can all throw him, hey, come take your $1.5 million from us and just come be part of the team and be good quality veteran depth. I think he will get that offer from a lot of teams. And all of the contenders will offer like, hey, just come be our wide receiver 5 and hang out. And if you need to start the season on PUP, that's fine. We'll bring you back when it's there. And we just have a good veteran depth piece that can come in and insurance later on in the season.
Yeah, I think I was actually talking to one of the fellow dads at the art show tonight, and he was asking me about that, and I said, like, he wants to play for a contender, but I could see this being one of those situations where when you actually hear where he signed, it is probably for like $3 million more than any of the contenders were offering. Because at the end of the day, it usually comes down to the money and the agent swaying a guy towards the money. So I think you mentioned a team like the Giants. One of those teams that's like trying to upstart and needs a little bit of veteran presence in the locker room to upstart. I think they'll be willing to give a little bit more on top. And it's easy to be like, hey, he's getting that 12. He's fine. Play for a contender. But there's a certain million that is like, okay, I'll go take the millions.
Producer Chris just put in the chat, like, the Patriots think they could make a run at a wild card spot. Like, so they can pitch it that, hey, come help us be a contender to make the playoffs and be the difference of what we can do. Like, they think that they're going to do that. So, I mean, there's a lot of those possibilities where teams can convince themselves. This time of year, everybody thinks they got a shot at the playoffs. So except for the Browns. Everybody except for the Browns thinks they have a shot at the playoffs.
Yeah.
So our original here to help is the guy we did sign, which is Elijah Moore. So we talked about that a little bit last week. The news it just recently broke. We were waiting for the real contract details, which came out today. And of course, like every single time this happens, it was up to $5.5 million, and everybody was going crazy about the money we signed. That wasn't really the case. He signed a $2.5 million deal, $1.75 million guaranteed, and then there's another $2.5 million in not likely to be earned incentives that he can earn as the season goes. So obviously that is much more aligned to what we kind of expected. That's, less money than Lyle Collins got paid last year, and he didn't even make the 53. That's less money than Marquez Valdes-Scantling made. He did make the 53, but he got cut 6 weeks into the season. Scantling had actually more guaranteed money. He had $2.25 million guaranteed, while Moore has $1.75 million guaranteed. So I like Elijah Moore. I like the upside. I think it's a great upside swing. I think he signed here because he believes he can make a difference and compete, but he is competing with Curtis Samuel for wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. Curtis Samuel has a bunch more money tied to him. And could be competing with Gabe Davis. And I think that there's, a path where that could make sense, but I'm glad that it wasn't overcommitting financially. This was very much one of those dart throws. And again, last year, Ty Johnson and Mac Hollins were these kind of dart throws, and they worked out. But we remember those. We don't remember the Nicholas Moros and the Deion Joneses and the Lyle Collinses and the Chase Claypools and Andy Isabellas. And there were a whole bunch of dart throws that didn't work out. Marcus Valdez-Scantling. But maybe this is a Mac Hollins or a Ty Johnson signing that we'll be really excited about when we get into the season.
Yeah, and this is such a breath of fresh air, and I want people that, I get so much crap for harkening back to the drought era and trying to frame how good we have it now, even though they haven't won the Super Bowl and done all those things, but like underpaying for free agents who want to resurrect their career and choose a spot like this as a, hey, I'm going to bet on myself with the best quarterback in the league in a historically good offense as a way to catapult myself to get a good contract. I'll take less because I think this is the spot that I can do that in. It's such a great spot to be in. And it doesn't get old to a guy like me, Greg, who had experience overpaying. You go back to 2007, right? The Bills are overpaying for a guy like Elijah Moore, and Chris Brown is overselling us on the impact that he's going to have to the wide receiver room. Now it's like,
Langston Walker.
Maybe he is a part of the team. Maybe he's not. Maybe he sticks. Maybe he's wide receiver 4. I don't know. But hey, if he hits the upside, this is good for everybody, and it costs us nothing. Like, this is exactly how good teams stay good,
Yeah. And that's, we used to make fun of the Patriots, but that's what they would do. And that we like to poke at the ones that missed because it's fun to make fun of Albert Hainsworth and Chad Ochocinco and those things. But it's also how they got Corey Dillon and how they got Randy Moss and how they got, all kinds of other, Kyle Van Noy and all kinds of other pieces that were like castaway, cheap acquisitions that like some of those really, really hit and help them thrive during those years. So it's nice to be on the other side of that now.
Yep.
All right. Are we ready to flip over to the defensive side of the ball? This one had a little bit more meat on the bone, a little bit more that was
is that
available to us here.
Meat on the bone for large humans? Is that
it? Hey, I already put it out there. I joked with Eric. They're like, hey, I beat this bit into the ground for almost 3 years, and we finally picked one. I think I'm obligated to buy a Deion Walker jersey that says large humans on it. So now that they're out there, and I know today we learned for the first time what his jersey number is. So now that I know it's 96, I won't lie. I did poke around a little bit on the customized jersey sites, looking at what they would look like.
But I went first last time, so why don't you lead us off here on most improved?
So I was going to try to do like Eminem in the rap battles because obviously I know you're going to pick the defensive backs for most improved. And there's plenty of a case for it, but I am going to pick the defensive line. I am going to pick it that I like. It's a full revamp and a full 6 new pieces is a significant amount, and we really only lost Von Miller in that sense of things. Obviously, like some of the guys are replacing an Austin Johnson or some your Jordan Phillips type depth pieces, but as far as like actual contributors, like Von Miller was the only piece that went out, but we brought in Joey Bosa and Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi and Landon Jackson and TJ Sanders and Deion Walker, and having 6 new pieces come in when Greg Russo was already really good, Ed Oliver was already really good. AJ Epinesa is a contributor. I think that's an interesting piece here. He'll come up when we do our defensive end position group, that is going to be fighting for things. Daquan Jones, we need to be healthy and being able to contribute for what we had seen previously. And, we haven't seen what we needed to yet from Dwayne Carter, but I also have put it out there that I can't praise the second year performance that we saw from Terrell Bernard and Spencer Brown and Khalil Shakir and Christian Benford and those players, and then also say that, yep, I'm done with the Dwayne Carter and I know that he's never going to be any good.
Sure.
You never know with Javon Solomon. We saw a couple little flashes there. So I'm still open to Epinesa and Daquan as veterans and Dwayne Carter and Javon Solomon as second-year players. But the fact that we had the 2 other stalwart pieces, added 6 new pieces, that's 8. And then if any of those 4, I just read it off, that's 12 guys. I feel really good that we can get the 6 or 7 rotational pieces to be a consistent disruptive force for every passing game we face, because we only need like half of them to pan out here, and we already know that 2 of them are very good and consistent and applicable. So out of the other 10, we need 4 of those 10 to pan out, and I feel really, really good about those odds. So I like it. That, I mean, it was a huge investment. We spent a lot of money doing that. We spent a lot of draft capital doing that, but being able to go through, and as Curtis is saying here, you know, we've talked about it before. You might as well change his name legally to Joey Bosa if healthy. He's still a game wrecker. Like, he's still a very impactful, at minimum top 20 pass rusher in the league when healthy. And yeah, it's not the prettiest stuff. It's not the most, you know, bendy, edge turning stuff, but he can still collapse a pocket like a tin can. And if he's able to do that when the games matter, and 3 more of these guys contribute along with it, that is the kind of stuff we have not had during the Josh Allen era. And you talk about, you know, the possibility of going back to that cold front defensive front, and that if we could have that cold front defensive line with the Josh Allen offense, that's what a Super Bowl looks like. So my most improved, I went with the defensive line group, and am really excited about the possibilities, because we're playing a numbers game, and we don't have to put all our chips on one piece. We just need some of them to pan out.
I like it, and I don't totally disagree. Am I really that transparent that you knew I was going to go with the DB room?
And I'm only half joking, because there is a good case to be made for the defensive backs.
I did go with the defensive backs for most improved, because I loved Rasul Douglas during his time here, but towards the end he felt like a bit of a liability in that.
It became noticeable
to me. And I think they, even prior to the draft, I think the Bills did a really nice job of addressing the potential floor of the depth of the defensive back room here with a Dane Jackson, with a Tre'Davious White. I think that with Forrest as safety, I'm going to lump safety in with the DB room, bringing back DeMar Hamlin as a floor in case a Cole Bishop doesn't take the leap that we expect him to take. You have starting caliber players as depth players throughout your defensive back room. And then you add in a first round pick in Hairston. I'm still super high on Strong as well. I think that you've increased some options for your DB room, not only for this year, but into the future.
Remember when we went from, oh my God, I can't believe Dane Jackson has to start opposite Christian Benford, to, oh my God, is Dane Jackson going to make this roster?
Yeah, he might be a practice squad guy. And even some, like, I like DeMar Hamlin, and I've advocated for his adequacy a number of times, but he might be a guy that's on the outside looking in here this summer as we look at that room. I think that you also look at the addition of a Jordan Hancock and look at, hey, we have a real potential backup nickel, maybe a replacement for a Cam Lewis, who is a guy I don't like. And so I think it's added quite a bit to this room, again, both for now and into the future. And I know that I pumped the brakes a little bit on Hairston, but if he can match that athleticism and be a fit right away, we haven't seen something like that in this Bill scheme. And if you add that,
I love his energy. Like, his personality is infectious.
And you get him around a Trey White for a year and just let him kind of learn to be a professional with a Tre'Davious White who absolutely knows this system. He was the first pick.
Famous work ethic.
Absolute great work ethic. You get him around that and in this building, and you match that athleticism with what we know Colt Bishop has for athleticism in this DB room. We haven't seen it. And you match that with the size of a Christian Benford, who I think Christian Benford is going to solidify that he is one of the top 3-4 corners in the league this year. Again, if he stays healthy, he was playing at an all-pro level last year. So I love this room. I think it's one of the best ones that they've assembled, both from an athletic standpoint and from a talent standpoint in terms of depth. So I love it. And then I'll lead off on my biggest question, because it's your biggest improvement, but I don't mean this because I agree with a lot of what you said about the defensive line, and I think that there's a great case and I think the Bills need it to be the most improved, because it really hurt the defensive backs last year. Their inability to get to the passer was probably the biggest hindrance of the defense a year ago, especially on the interior, and they did a lot to address it, but all the things that they did to address it, I have big questions of, can it can we get what we are expecting out of this group, right? You have suspended for 6 games 2 of your biggest free agent acquisitions, and I do expect them to make big impacts late in the season, but now you're going to rely on these young rookies to come in right away, and TJ Sanders is going to have to be impactful early on. Landon Jackson's going to, if you want Joey Bosa to stay healthy, Joey Bosa, whatever his name is, you're going to need a Landon Jackson to be a heavy part of this rotation. And I see the potential, and I like both players, but now I got to see it at the pro level here as a major part of this rotation. I'm a big believer in Greg Rousseau. I think Bills fans are still way too low on his potential because he doesn't have the sexy sack, double-digit sack statistics continuously, but every other metric is showing that this guy is one of the top havoc creating defensive ends in the league. And so I love that. I'm still also a lot higher on that Oliver than I think a lot of Bills fans are. I think it's been a disservice to him that Daquan Jones hasn't been able to recapture his strength and his ability in the middle. And if you can get some of that out of a Sanders, maybe like you said, Dwayne Carter takes a step forward here this year and some of the play next to that Oliver gets better. I see the vision for this defensive line, but to me, there feels like there's a lot of, I have to talk myself into that this is going to project how I would like it to.
The way that I approached it was I separated it. If I had made the case in the defensive back group, it would have been specifically the cornerback group. Because my biggest remaining question is with the safety group. So specifically the safeties there, I think even the way you describe the defensive line, I can tell myself a story with each of them, but I still have a question with each of them. Like Taylor Rapp, can he stay on the field? Can he play? I don't need 17 games. I need 20 games. I need 21 games. I need Cole Bishop to be able to step forward and take the spot that he was drafted as a top 60 pick to come and be a part of. If not, I'm now banking on, admittedly a unpopular, but a fine floor of DeMar Hamlin. But now I'm banking on, can we capture something with the physical upside of Derek Forrest, or can a, rookie 5th rounder like Jordan Hancock be able to, stake a claim at a role? Taron Johnson did as a rookie. He was a day 3 rookie, and he took that job right from the beginning because there was an opening, an opportunity for it. Can an upstart like Wande Owens make the roster and push for playing time or something like that? We're banking on a lot of ifs and maybes in a group that had been for the longest time the best part of this defense and the most reliable and the highest upside, and 2 different guys getting all pro in back-to-back seasons and stealing votes from each other in the other season. And now we have a handful of ones that we could tell ourselves a story. I think obviously the most likely combo is Rapp and Bishop, but if I told you that it's week 11 of this season and neither of them are starting, would you be shocked for whatever reason? That's part of where my concern is. So the reason that I was careful about how I describe my confidence in the defensive line group is because of the numbers game. It is because of the fact that hey, I kind of like that we get to see what the rookies do for 6 weeks and then get an automatic trade deadline addition. Heck, if we went into this year and said, hey, we traded for Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi, everybody be like, oh my God, this is awesome. We're going to win the Super Bowl. That's basically what it's going to be. We just get them in there. And I saw a question in the chat here that I wanted to clarify because Music Blogger has had some good comments so far on the show. Do they cut Ogunjobi and keep Daquan? Just to clarify, the team has made it clear that they knew about Larry Ogunjobi's situation prior to finalizing his deal. So a lot of the traditional things where you hear about players who then test positive for something, you void previous guarantees. That only applies if you sign the contract not knowing that was the case, and then it voids those guarantees. So the guarantees they gave Larry Ogunjobi, which again they did renegotiate. Larry Ogunjobi lost money in this deal. They ended up signing for less money than what the original agreement was. That's basically how they got their pound of flesh from him, was that they took some of that money back in the negotiation. What they gave him, he got guarantees. So because they knew about it after the fact. So the fact that they went in eyes wide open and they were aware of this, it's not the traditional voided guarantee situation as before. So all that being said, Larry Ogunjobi's on this team for this year. It's a 1-year deal. He's going to be on the team. Daquan Jones, I think that, oh my God, Curtis.
This hurts my soul, this
Rap
Curtis.
Spears Bishop week 5 and Hamlin and Forrester started. Oh my God. Oh, it hurts my soul. I will say that is the story of how we're like going into the Super Bowl and like, oh my God, can you believe how good Jordan Hancock's been as a starting safety as a rookie? And it's going to be something stupid like that, how we're forced to find out because he has to come in and play. So again, the Daquan Jones part I did talk about at all the way back at our salary cap spectacular. The only guy that I thought actually checked the boxes of what made sense for the Bills out of every contract that we had for a post June 1st release, the only one was Daquan Jones. So now again, we brought in 6 defensive linemen, so there's a non-zero chance, but we didn't bring in one single traditional one tech. So in my mind, Daquan Jones's job is pretty safe, but also maybe they don't think we need a traditional one tech. I don't know. Like I've stopped, even the large human I did get is the Jordan Phillips large human, he's not a Ted Washington, Sam Adams large human. Like he's a penetrating freak of nature. Like he's not somebody who holds the point of attack. That's not what he's good at. So I think all those things tell us that Daquan Jones' job is relatively safe and that maybe our backup plan is a Eli Ankow, Linval Joseph type midseason street free agent signing if we really needed it. And we've seen in the past, even guys who like are Hicks and stuff like that we've seen, kind of spring loose at weird times. The two down run plugging defensive tackles do come available. So
he even said that himself. Like that's with the way he attacked the draft is like those other guys you can find them where it's hard to get the penetrators. They don't
guys who disrupt the pass. You said it perfectly. Like protect your quarterback's ability to produce EPA, disrupt the other team's ability to produce EPA. Like
that's the name of the game.
Pass the ball, stop them from passing the ball. That's football nowadays.
Yep.
All right. Anything else for the people here before we close out for the night?
No, man. I always like to say I'm looking forward to things, but I am dreading actually the next few months because this is it'll be fun to go through the roster and kind of take a look back position by position, but this is the longest stretch. The weather's getting nicer here, so that's nice. It makes the time go by a little bit faster, but training camp is really what it's all about. It's just a long grind here until training camp, until we get back into football season, but it'll be here before we know it. We do this every year, and we're like, oh, we dread this time of year, and before we know it, summers fly by, and we're back to training camp mode and hanging out, and so it's coming. It's there, but I'm not looking forward to the wait in between.
Yeah. So as Aaron points out, this next stretch is always, I always try to pitch it. If you have people in your family who feel left out, like they don't know all the different things and they want to be able to talk to everybody as it's coming to people at work, people in your family, being able to go through, this is the time to really get caught up on everything that's going on with this team. We're going to go through each position: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line, special teams, defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, corner, safety, all the way through. Being able to talk through, as Ron here points out, we'll go deep into Puntapalooza and the competition with Jake Camarda and being able to identify each of the different position groups, help you understand. We'll go through starting battles where they exist, roster spot battles, trade down, cut down, cut down day trade candidates, different possibilities. I normally would talk about extension candidates, but we pretty much extended all those people. So we might talk about that in one or two of the shows. There's still a running back and an offensive lineman who I see floating out there. That's about it. But ultimately, this is the way to get you ramped up and ready for the next season, leading all the way into training camp. And as we get closer to training camp, we're going to have a sneaky surprise announcement. We've reached an agreement with a new sponsor that will be really very fun to be able to announce to everyone. Anyone who's seen me enjoy my Saturday nights sometimes, you may have a sneaking suspicion of who it may be, but excited for there. And anyone who wants to be able to help us out, the people in the Discord channel already know who that new sponsor is because they're in there talking with us all the time. We've been debating about Elijah Moore. We've been talking back and forth about the Gabe Davis news.
Dalton
Eric
Kincaid's
Sharon. Yeah, we've heavily debated Dalton Kincaid's weight, and Zapruder filmed pictures of him. So come on in, join us over there. As you can see, Chris putting up at the bottom of the screen, cover1.net/OnePass. Come and join us. Best way to support us, you can get the awesome 26 shirts. Cover One design. There'll be a new design for this training camp here. So the last stretch to get the original shirt. And we always make those links available for people to buy the new one or to get one for your family as well. Any final thoughts before we close out?
No, man. I got to wake up early. I got a golf tournament to submit for tomorrow. And yeah, I was telling you before, people like this because they know I broke my pinky dunking on my kids. And so now I got to play with a broken pinky because my wife told me to stop dunking on the kids, and I did not listen to my wife. And
I have a feeling you're never going to hear about that again. No one's going to bring that up at any point ever.
Yeah, well, and then she was like, "Wow, it didn't stop you from golfing. That's kind of weird." And so, yeah, I'm winning the Idiot Husband of the Week award.
Congrats
in spades. I don't think anyone can take it from me.
Yeah, I was say I appreciate you taking one for the team. That's going to be hard to beat.
That's what I'm here for.
All right, guys, we appreciate it very, very much on behalf of our fantastic friends over William Mattar Law Offices. You guys know the number. Hurt in a car, call William Mattar, 844-444-4444. Awesome people to work with. And on behalf of our fantastic producer, Chris Kepner, and my lovely co-host, Aaron Quinn, I'm Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.